Good day all and welcome to Python Coding Lesson 8 Functions Part 2. So before we can move on to the next part of functions, let's have a quick recap of what we did yesterday. In yesterday's lesson, we learned that, I did a ball bouncing program as a screensaver for y'all to show y'all that coding can be implemented for more than just normal code, which you can have graphics. As said at our first lesson, Python's used in multiple games that's currently in development and developed. And that's just a small portion of it. Next, I did the introduction to functions, and we did the first type of functions which does work for us when it's called. That is, when you call the function, it will just output, display, or do a calculation for you. And the body of that function was as follows. It was define the function name, your parentheses around brackets, colon, then inside your body, what you want to do in the function. Remember, the indented work means what you're going to do for the function above it, just like how it's applied to the if statement, for the for loop, and the while loop. Right. Next, before we can go on to today's work, just want to check up on the variables, right? With variables, we have two types of variables. Part of the variable types which you learned was string, integer, float, and Boolean. Those were the four types, but we have two different variants of variables. That is, we have local variables and global variables. When you think of local variables and global variables, for example, take yourself. You're a local person in the province that you stay. But when you go to an overseas country, now you are not a local person there. Now you're coming from internationally. That's where they say you come from around the globe. Right. So the same thing applies to variables when we using them in a program. We can have local variables, can only be accessed where it was created. Then we can have global variables. This can be accessed anywhere in the program. All right. For example, if I have a definition, hello, username is equal to Dave, print, hello, username. Then I have username is equal to Sam, hello, and then print hello username. If we look at this coding, I'm just going to open it up quickly. There we are. All right, so you can actually see which line numbers I'm talking about. So I'm going to go to line numbers and say, right, so if I look at the definition, remember the definition only gets run when it's called. And this definition is only going to be called in line 6. So line 5 will run first, then line 6, and then line 7. So if we look at this, we can say that the username is going to be equal to Sam. So use the variable username will have Sam stored in it. But on line 6, we said hello, and we called up the definition. So we called up the definition, hello, and what did the definition do? It said, okay, I'm going to change the username to Dave. So now username is going to hold Dave, but it's then going to print hello username. So it's going to print hello Dave because the username is Dave. Now that it's done with the definition, it'll then go to line 7. It's going to go to line 7 and print hello username. And this time when it prints hello username, it's not going to print hello Dave, how we think it would do. It's actually going to print hello Sam. You see, because this is a local variable. Local variable means it is only used where it was created. So this was created in my main part of my program. So this username over here is not the same as the username over here. Those are two different variables. Yet they are spelled the same, they have the same case. It's just that because this username was created in the definition, therefore It's different from the username which was created in the main part of the program. Right, so I'm going to run it to show you that. All right, there we go. It's going to say hello Dave first because it called up the hello, but at the end of the day at line 7 it still went and displayed hello Sam. Why? Again, because this is a local variable. The variables that's on the outside of the definition are different from the variables inside the definitions. So this is inside the definition, that's a variable username. That's on the outside of the definition. This is in my main part of my program. And you're going to see now from now onwards, I'm actually going to put down that this is my function. So you know that these are going to be where my functions are going to be. And this is the main program, right? Just so that you don't get confused and say that this username or these variables over here are the same as the definitions, because they are not. Right, so we look at then what would the global variables be? Well, global variables will be where I can now change this username on the outside to match the username on the inside. And how we do that is by simply saying on the inside of this definition that this username now must be global. And the format for that will be as follows. You'll notice that it's almost the same code except for one line extra. The definition is still there. The line that's extra now is I'm saying that I am using the username, but that username must be global. When I say global username, it's now telling the computer, you're not going to create one for the function, but you're going to go to the outside and see what that username is. So this username on the inside here is now the same as the outside the main program. So I'm going to quickly just type out that one there for us. So I'm going to go file, new. I'm going to go save as. Eight. Hello function. Global. And this time, I'm just going to just copy and paste it and put down that one extra line. So I've copied, pasted it, and the one extra line goes here. Now, instead of say making this function make its own username up or its own variable, we're going to say that variable there is actually a global variable. So global user name. So now what this does again, it joins this username to the external, the main program's username. So now these two usernames are linked when we say global. So now if I have to print this out, I'm going to go run print, run module. You can see it says, hello, Dave, hello, Dave. Why? Because the computer now linked these two variables. That username on the top here is now linked to this username at the bottom here. So when the program came to the main part and said line 9 is Sam, so it said the username is holding Sam. Then it went to line 10, it said hello, it's called up the function. So it's calling up the function, so we're going to go inside the function now. It said now the usernames are linked, but after I linked the usernames, I said the username must now be Dave. So now the Sam on the outside got erased. It now it is replaced with Dave because they are linked together. Then finally, I printed the username. And when I came on the outside and printed the username, it was changed because whatever you change to a global variable anywhere in your program, it changes anywhere. Remember, that's what global means: everywhere, anywhere, and everywhere you see that, it can change. So this variable now is linked to all the usernames. So it's changed throughout the program. That's why in this case, I had Dave twice. So that's your global variables and your local variables. Local variables, if you don't see the word global there, it's local, therefore it's different. But the moment I put global in front of a variable name, it now links those variables together. It means those two variables are actually the same. Right. Hope you understood that part. Next, we're going to move on to today's function. And today's function would be the definition with arguments. Now, the definition with arguments, I started that yesterday and I showed you how you can send through letters to make your own characters in the display. But let's look at the hello first, the greeting one that we did. So if we look at the definition for hello function, and we printed hello, this was inside the function. This was the first definition that we did. So I'm going to quickly open up the definition. For some, okay, it was in yesterday's one. Hold on. Right. So I got my function that says hello function, and if I run this, it's just going to say me hello from inside the function. Now, what if I wanted to print or greet the person instead of just writing hello, this is inside the function? I want to say hello and to the person that's using the program. How would I do that? If you said use an input, that would be correct. You could use an input. So let's just alter this program to do that. We can say, okay, we can have an input here. So we can go with user name is equal to input. And we can say enter in your name. And finally, we can greet the person. So we can say hello, user name. Now this would be the program that would greet a person. Oh, sorry, username. Oh, I forgot this semicolon went on the wrong place. So right, inside the brackets, take that one outside. Right, there you go. Enter your name. So now if I put Dave, it'll say hello, Dave. Right, nothing much stressful about that. No, but what happens when I have a slightly different program? For example, this. Functions. Remember, I told them to just separate the main part with the functions. But this time I got the username being entered on the outside. It's been entered in the main program. Right? So the main program starts here. So it's been entered in the main program in line number 6. What will you do? Well, some of you will be sharp enough to say, just take it and cut it off and paste it in the top function. But what if that's not the case? What if I wanted to send through this username to this function? Well, some of you would go now and say, all right, since you just showed us global variables, if we go global here and say global user name, then that would link it. And if we go now and say hello user name, it's now, because it's linked, because we said it's global username, it would now run what's on the outside. And that's correct. It will do that. So it's asking for the username. So I'm going to put Sam, and it says hello, Sam, because it was linked. But now, you see, the problem why we don't like to use global variables is because when we start using global variables like this, it takes away control from the person that's creating the program. And because it takes away control, that means what we're talking about is if any definition had to change the username anywhere in my program, the information will be lost eventually. So that's the reason why most of the time we don't use global variables. So there must be some other way for us to get the information from my main program to my definition. And that's what today's work is about. How do we get source? How do we take information from one part of the program to another? And if we look at our slide again, in order to do this, we have to have arguments. Arguments are what's the values this function is going to receive. You see, when you see brackets or parentheses and any value inside the the brackets, then that means the value is being sent to this function. All right. So we can change the function to have that. So there's a few things that you need to understand when we using arguments. When we use functions that pass arguments as parameters, or well, arguments is the same as parameters, you have to make sure that you send the required amount. You cannot send extra or less. That what I'm talking about is if I have one argument here, and I'm going to change this program to have that one argument, because remember I said global variables, we don't have a lot of control over them. But what I can do is I can take out username there and I can place it inside there. And what this does now, it tells me that this hello function, when I call it, I need to pass through a variable called username, or a value that needs to be sent to this program is a username. So when we call this now, we now need to send through a username. So if you look at this function, where has it been called? It's been called in line 7. But in line 7, I've got hello underscore function round brackets. And there's nothing inside the round brackets. So if I run this module right now, you'll see that the program will break after we enter a person's name. Why? Because it's only that one line that's broken. So only when the line that's broken is reached will the program stop and give you the error. So I can go here and say Dave, and there you go. It tells us that the hello function, round brackets, is missing one required potential argument. That means it's missing the one value that you were supposed to send. And what's the one value we were supposed to send? It's called username. So we now need to send through the person's username. So if I go, I can put down in here. I'm just going to put Sam. All right. So I'm going to run this now. So if I put in the name Dave, we would get the greeting, hello, Sam. The reason for this is if we take a closer look at our program, we are entering the person's name, but we're not sending the person's name into the function. We send in the word Sam, or the person Sam. So that's why that got outputted as hello, Sam. So what does this mean? Anything that you send here will be received in the function inside username. So because username is now there, I can now display it. For those of you that are asking, do these values in the bracket and the value on the outside here have to be the same? No. I could have put U N for short form for username, but inside here, I would have had to change it to UN as well, because these values have to be the same. These are the variables inside the function. I can only use variables inside of functions once it's created, and inside here it has been created. All right. So Now, if I change this now and actually send through the person's username, so I'm going to put the person's username, run it. This time, if I put down yes, Alice, it'll say hello, Alice. So why? Because this time when I entered the person's name, I stored it in username, but when I called up the hello function, I send through hello function and I send through, you must take whatever I have in username. So it sent through it in my hello function, it received the value, and when it received the value, it saved the value in the variable called un. So that username is now stored in un. And when I printed hello un because I have un. I know that some of you might think that this is a long way to do it when you can just use global variables. But again, global variables are there just in case we want to link variables up. Now in this case, I don't want to link them up. But later on, if I want to change something in here, it mustn't change on the outside, it must stay the same. Remember, global variables take away our control on how we use a variable. All right. Next, the same function now, but we can have the function with arguments again, but we can also have them equal to a default value. A default value means that I can save a value there just in case a person doesn't enter anything. For example, the random range function that we used. New file. The random range function that we used. So if we just look at it quickly, it was run import random, and if we went random dot range, range, there was three possibilities of us using this. Oh, sorry, two possibilities of us using this. It was either we give it a value. If I give it a value like 10, the values 0 to 9 will be given to me any random number between 0 and 9. Remember, it doesn't take the bigger number, and 0 to 9 is actually 10 digits. All right. But there was an alternate one where we went random dot rand range 1 and 10. And when we gave a start position and an end position, it gave us values again from those values, but we could be more specific on it. Now, these two functions are actually one. It's just that this function's requiring one input, this requires two. And or you may be asking, if it's the same thing, how come it didn't break? Because I said in our previous statement that it has to be, so you have to send the required amount of information. If I wanted one, it must be one. If I wanted two, it must be two. The reason for this is because it has a default value. And this random function here has a default value programmed when you just send in one value. And we'll be using that now. For example, this. I'm going to file save as. Oh, default. Right. So what if I decide to run the program and a person that uses this function that I create doesn't actually put anything in there, just sends it through. This is now going to break because remember, we want one, they send in nothing. The same thing is if you have to send in more than one piece of information. I'm going to show you that quickly before I move on. So if I said I'm going to send through 2 pieces of information, the computer will break again, because again, you have to send in how many is required. So we got what's your name, and as you can see that the function tells you hello function takes 1 positional argument, but we were given 2. So the function wants 1, we gave it 2. You're not allowed to go more or less. So how can we get rid of this? We can say, all right, if the person that's using my function calls me up and doesn't say me anything, I can give a default value. And the default value I'm going to put there is no name. So what this will do, it'll come to the program and say, all right, input your information. And since I didn't send it through, it's going to output no name. So this is what we call default value assignment. When you don't send something through and we give you a default value. So now if I run it, you'll see it won't break, but it'll tell me my name is no name. Enter your name, click Dave, hello, no name. So can you see that? I hope so. Now, what I'm talking about is all this information. You can run these programs using a different program. All you have to remember is the name of the file on the top. And this name of the file is hello function with default input default. So what does this mean for me? I can take away this for the time being, and I can create a new file. I'm going to try and sort this out here now. Hold on 1 second. There we go. I'm going to create a new file. Let me just open this here. Okay, it opens here. All right. So I'm going to go new file. There we go. It opens the right place. All right, so I'm going to save this as my test function. So I'm going to test the function that we just created. But instead of writing that entire function out, because we've already created it in a file already, and the file is called hello function with input, all I'm going to do is I'm going to import that file. So I'm going to just copy this down. That's the bad part of having long names. You have to remember it, and it has to be the exact spelling. So I'm going to go import, and I'm going to import hello function with input default. So it's going to import that entire file. When I import that entire file, I'm simply going to call up the function hello function. And if I look at this name is really long, so I'm going to shorten it down. I'm just going to shorten it down as hello function. All right. I'll explain what the as part does later on. All right, so I'm going to go hello function dot hello, sorry, small letters, function, and I'm going to run this. And you notice I'm running this program, but it's asking me for what's my name. I'm going to go Sam, no same. And it says hello name twice and no name. All right. Because you notice I call this function up from here. Oh, I didn't save this. Hold on. Save. Right. So what I'm doing is in the statement here I imported the file that we just created. This as part just shortens the name. So what it does is if I had to use this, I had to put this entire word down over here, and it's a lot of writing. So what I did was I shortened the name down to HF. So that's what the as function does for us. It shortens your file name. So whenever the computer says HF, it actually means hello function with input default, right? But you notice that this file, if I close this, shouldn't have done that. Right, even if I close this and run this file, it asks me, I just go straight to hello, no name. Yet the only line of code I have here is 2 lines, import and that. So the reason for this is because our code is already in another file. Remember the last part of our slide the last time was it hides information. So it's hiding our actual code. So you can create files and hide your code that way. So others can't interfere with your coding. All right, so that's enough there. Let's move on. All right, next. So that's what I've explained. When we have our definition, we have a function and we can greet a person and say name is equal to Sam, print hello name. And if you send through Dave, it'll print Dave. If you don't send through anything, it'll print Sam. And you can have multiple functions like this. Now, the thing about sending through parameters, you don't only have to send through one parameter. You can actually send through multiple parameters. So I'm just going to go save. I'm going to call this names, right? So instead of sending through one parameter, I'm going to send through multiple. And how we do that is by firstly telling the computer what are the parameters, what is the arguments that you want. I want the username 1, username 2, username 3. You notice that anything that you want is always separated by a comma. And I want the mark 1, mark 2, mark 3. So in my program, I can simply go and say, this is my function. This is my main program. So I can go here and say, name 1 is equal to input enter in your name, or enter in name 1. Just going to copy and paste that. We can do that. We're using PC, laptop, whatever you're using, desktop, even on your phone. So I'm going to have 6 inputs. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm going to have name 1, name 2, name 3, name 1, name 2, name 3. Next one is going to be for marks. So mark 1, mark 2, mark 3. Us, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3. And when we send it through, we have to send it through in that order. But of course, I know that I want marks. So I can obviously say that these ones here need to be integers or floats, depending on whether you want a real number or you want an integer number. I'm just going to currently just work with integers. I'm going to put int. You notice over here, we didn't specify if something is a string or an integer because the computer will automatically take in the information and allocate it correctly, but it will always take it in that order. So you can't put username 1, mark 1, username 2, mark 2, unless that's the order that we asked it for. All right, so now that I've got my function, let's just change this to average. And finally, I'm going to send through the information. I send through name 1, name 2, name 3, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3. And program, then print out what the average is. And I hope you can remember how to calculate average. Yes, average is the sum of the numbers divided by how many numbers you have. So we can go average is equal to mark or M1 plus M2 plus M3, because remember, over here in my main program, it's called mark 1, 2, and 3. But in my function average, it's called M1, M2, and M3. All right, so there we have it. Divide that by 3. Now I can say, put a message, the average mark for username 1, username 2, username 3 is average. So if I run this quickly, I'm just going to go A, B, and C. Mark is 4, 5, and 6. The average is 5. Right? So it doesn't matter how many pieces of information you have, as long as you declare what you want to send inside as arguments, you can send them. Doesn't only have to be letters, it doesn't only have to be numbers, it can be a combination if you want. But remember, it must be in the order that we ask. So if you ask for username 1, mark 1, username 2, mark 3, it must be in that order. For those of you all that can't picture what I just said, I'm talking about if I had in brackets here, username 1, mark 1, username 2, mark 2, username 3, mark 3. I'm saying if that was my order, then when I send it through, that also must be my order. These two need to match, because whatever value is in the first position here will get stored in the first position. Whatever value is in the second position will get stored in the second position. That's how the functions work. Okay. All right, let's move on to a little activity. Number 1, write out functions that will do the following operators: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The function must display the answer to the problem in a suitable message. These functions will receive two values, well, two values of two numbers. So I'm going to quickly open up a new program. Just going to open this faster. Right, file new, so it saves in the right place. So I'm going to go save maths problem. And now that I have my maths problem, I'm going to go back to the question and see what is it that they're asking me to do in this question. In this question, if I look at it, they tell me I need to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And I need to create functions for those. So for each one, I need to create a function. So it means now I need to create a function for each one of these pieces of information. So I'm going to go back. So, right, how do I add numbers? So let's start off with, firstly, this is the function section where I'm going to write all my functions. This is going to be where I put down my main program. And of course, if I had any import statements, I would put my import statements here. I'm just setting up my work so that I know where everything is, because we're going to have a lot of code. So if I look at this now, the first thing I know is I'm going to input two numbers. So that's going to be in my main part of my program. So I'm going to say, all right, number 1 is equal to, let's go with integers, and input, enter in number 1. Yes, I will start the quotes. Right, just going to copy and paste it. Of course, change it to number 2. So I got 2 numbers that I've entered so far. Well, 12. Right. Next, I'm going to create a little display, because if I'm entering these 2 numbers, I need to figure out what operator am I going to do. Am I going to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division? Or I can do all depending on what I want. So let's start with the all part. So if I'm going to do all the operators, I'm going to have to create functions for each of them. So let's start defining functions. So I can define my first function as define, let's go with add. And the add is going to receive number 1 and number 2. When I receive number 1 and number 2, I can say addition. I'm going to just make sure that the name is not the same as the function. Better yet, let me just put this as 4 words. All right, addition on the top and sharp on the bottom. All right, addition is equal to number 1 plus number 2. That will add the numbers for me. And then finally, I can say print. Say number 1 plus number 2 is equal to addition. Then I need to do the same thing for subtraction, multiplication, and division. So I'm just going to copy and paste it down 3 times. All right, so from addition, I'm going to go subtraction. And of course, change the symbol. It's going to be subtraction. Now I'm going to go multiplication. The symbol for multiplication is, yes, star. But if I want to look nice, I'm going to put just X there, right? But remember, X is not a multiplication sign, it's a letter. Right. And finally, division. And the division sign, yes, it's a forward slash. Right. Unfortunately, there's no division sign. I can copy and paste the symbol, but that'll be it. Then, to make stuff a little bit fancy, I need to put a heading. So I'm going to create a definition for the heading. So I'm going to display. A little display for the heading. And my display will read like the last program I had. What would they like to do? 1 for addition, 2 for subtraction, and I added on 4 for division. Now, when I'm coming to my main program, what is it I must do? My main program, the first thing I need to do is show that display. Can't just ask them to enter numbers if they don't know what they're doing first, right? So I'm going to display what they want to do and check what option they give me. So I'm going to say, all right, after I put in my display, I'm going to input what the option wants. What did they select? 1, 2, 3, or 4. Finally, I'm going to write out my if statements to do those calculations, because if they enter option 1, then I need to do addition. If they option 2, need to do subtraction, 3 for multiplication, 4 for division. And I'm just going to pull over my code. We have it done. There we go. So if the selection is equal to 1, then it's addition. So I need to call up addition. And I think I spelled it with small letters there. All right, so addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. So now if I run this would be my code. What would you like to do? You can see it because I had the display function first, it displayed the message, then it gave the input box. So I can say, all right, I want to do number 3, multiplication, enter in number 1. I should have put a colon there so it doesn't look different. So 8 and 2. They say 8 times 2 is 16. So that becomes our program. That's the activity. Right? Simple, straightforward. We just needed to write out the functions. We go File, New, and go to the next one. We go to the next one now. Next. Right. Number 2. Write a program that will encrypt and decrypt a message by reversing a sentence. Right, encrypting and decrypting of messages, that just means that you want to try and hide the message, so you put in a bunch of gibberish there. And the gibberish, when it's decrypted, tells you something that's how it's supposed to be. For example, if we put down today is, and if we reverse the sentence, the person that's looking at it that doesn't know it's reversed will see it like this, which you don't know what that means. It's written backwards. So we want to do a little program like that. Of course, you can see I got an example for input here, but I don't have the output. So let's see what that will be. Okay, so we'll just open up that program. Program is already done. This is what the program looks like. So I said, okay, I'm going to have a function. My main function is going to be, it's going to reverse a sentence. When I reverse the sentence, in order to reverse the sentence, I need to know what the sentence is. So I said, okay, that person needs to tell me what the sentence is. So next on line 3, I said, all right, sentence length is equal to the length of the sentence minus 1. Now, if you remember, length of a sentence tells you how long the sentence is. So if I had today, the length will return 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll return 5. The length of this sentence is 5. But when I use string handling, when we use string handling in the start, we learned that we don't go up to 5, we actually go up to 4, because this is actually position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I want to reverse a sentence, I need to go backwards from the last position. And the last position is not 5, but 4. That's why we subtracted 1 to get what the last position is. All right. And I said the new sentence is blank, means it mustn't have anything. I said, okay, while the sentence length is greater than equal to 0, because remember, our first position is actually position 0. So as long as I got a number that's greater than equal to 0, I can take that letter. I say the new sentence must add equal. Add equal means add on to new sentence. So it's a blank plus whatever we want. Whatever we got plus whatever's the new information. So it must add on the information and sentence, and we got sen length. So if we look at sen length is holding at the start. If I got today, 5, and 5 minus 1 is 4. So it'll say position 4. Then it goes to line 7, and we subtract 1 from that. And when we subtract 1 from that, we get 3. So it'll go 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then after that now, it'll print it out. And when it prints it out, it'll give us our answer. So I'm going to quickly take in that sentence that we had. Oh, today is. Right. I'm going to run it. And there we have it. So I got today is, and there you go. It reverses the sentence for me. So it goes from the last position and it goes backwards. It's counting each letter backwards and adding it to my old letters. Right, so it reverses the sentence. So what does that other one that we've got there mean? So let's look at it. So I'm just going to copy and paste the entire sentence. There's the entire sentence, except for that it's supposed to be there. What does this entire thing mean? If we reverse it, it means I can't wait to program another turtle program. All right. So that's how we can encrypt and decrypt a message. Of course, if the person has this program, they can do it as well. So it's a little fun activity to do, right? So talking about the turtle program, let's do one using the functions, right? So I'm going to just open up names and go to a new function. Like new file. And make a file, save. Move in turtle. Let's move the turtle today. All right, so we're going to move the turtle today. So let's go through this quickly. First thing we're going to do, remember the turtle is a module that we have to import. So we're going to import the module. So I'm going to have my modules here. What I'm importing. After I have what I import in, I'm going to have my functions. After my functions, I'm going to have my main program. Right, so what am I importing? I'm going to import turtle. Anything else? I'll think about it later. Maybe I'll have something else there. All right, so I'm going to go with functions and my main program. Before I go to my main program, I need to first create this turtle. So I'm going to go pen is equal to turtle dot turtle. Capital letter T. Right, turtle. Then I'm going to go and say, right, pen dot speed, because I don't want this thing to move too slowly. The speed, all it does, it creates the animation, and 0 means fast, right? Then we're going to go pen dot width. So I creating how thick this image needs to be, which is 5. And now I can start with some of my functions, and the functions would be like, if you press on your keyboard, up, down, left, right. And because you're going to press on your keyboard, those would actually be functions, because when you press on the keyboard, you want to do some work, right? So let's just go first with the bottom part so that we can see the turtle. So I'm going to go turtle, TLE dot main loop. And this does is it loops our animation. All right, so if we quickly open this, yes. All right, there you go. It created our turtle on the screen. Because it gave me an object. Oh, width I spelled wrong. Right. Right, width. Next, we're going to go to our functions, and let's start with our functions. And we're going to say, all right, our first one would be if for moving up. So I'm going to go move up. What do I need to do? I need to first tell the pen to set heading. You see, when you say move up and you move forward, it's just going to move to the direction you're looking at. So when we say set heading, we are actually telling the pen, in that case the turtle, where it should look. So if I'm looking at a screen and I'm looking at any direction, up means going from top to bottom, or sorry, from bottom to top. So if I start in the center here, if I'm going to move up, if I look at a compass or the Cartesian plane, that means I'm going to move 90 degrees. That's actually going to be, the heading would be 90 degrees without the degree sign. Because I go pen dot forward, and I'm just going to take small steps. So I'm going to go, let's go 20, all right? What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy and paste this to make it life quicker. I'm going to do it for the 4 directions. So moving up, moving down, moving, can I mind? Moving left, and moving right. Class have to change the directions. Moving down would be from the center downwards. We look at a Cartesian plane, that's 270 degrees. Moving left, that would be 180 degrees. Remember, center that way, 180. Then finally, moving to the right, center that way, 0 degrees. I know some of you maybe wish I had 360, right? So 0 degrees. So now we got our movement for the pen, where it needs to go. Next, I can say, okay, in my main program, I need to firstly tell the turtle to listen for any key presses. So I say, all right, turtle dot listen. And the turtle's now going to listen to any of my key presses or anything that happens on the keyboard. So now I can go and tell the computer, all right, what I'm going to do is turtle dot on key. On key means when you press down on the key and lift it up. So what must happen when the key is being pressed? I must go to the move up function. And now this is where it's slightly different from our normal ones. We don't put down the brackets in here. So when I press down on the up key, I need to start the move up function. So I'm going to go move up, comma, that's the up key. All right, copy, paste. So move down would be the, sorry, that's a small p there, only the capital case in the front. So that'll be down. So on the down key, left key, right key. Down, sorry, the left and right. So there I've got my turtle. And if I press on the left key, sorry, something broke there. Let me try one more time to run it. Oh, it's before draw. Right, there's it. Trying to figure why it said me that. All right, there we go. And I'm pressing on my keys now. I'm not sure whether you can hear me tapping on it, but that's my keys being pressed down, and it is now moving the turtle. So whenever I press it, it's now moving. Now we can actually draw in the turtle using our keys. All right, so that's all is for today. I hope you'll had some fun today with our programming with turtles and the activity with 1 and 2. Yes, there is a little extra activity within this document, which would be yours to complete. Do I have any questions before I move on? Oh, well, before we close up today. All right, so if there's no questions, I wish you a good afternoon and I will see you tomorrow.